Hi friends, today we're talking about Arrtx acrylic markers. And I've been so anxious about making this video because the company sent the markers to me for free. They contacted me on Instagram and they were like, hey babe, do you want to try these? And I was like, bet. And now I'm like, yeah, let's speed this up. I'm like, shoot, what do I do now? Am I going to be less honest because they sent them to me for free? And I don't know. I'm an anxious person, so you tell me if I seem like I'm being dishonest, because this feels like some kind of psychological experiment. Anywho, the set that they sent me has 60 markers. They are in the anime color palette, and the markers have a brush tip. And they come organized in this nifty box. Important note, hot tip, don't take the markers out of the box until you have labeled them, because the little labels you see at the top of the screen correspond with where the markers are in the box. So you kind of lose your map if you start moving the markers around, and no telling if you're ever going to get them back in the right place or put the stickers on the right ones. So that was kind of a bummer, because I definitely made it past the point of no return in terms of getting those in the right place. The route I decided to take as I test out these markers is to see how they do, well, with layering. And that's kind of not ironic, but it's a little funny because these markers are not made for layering. In fact, kind of the selling point of any acrylic marker is that they have really high opacity, and that means you don't have to put down a lot of ink. Like, you put down one layer and it covers it and you're good. But I'm trying something a little different, a little fun, because that's actually how I tend to use this type of marker. I think it creates a really nice effect if, like with this goldfish, you add a lot of different colors underneath the main color that you're going to be using. So for example, this goldfish. In the end, it's going to be primarily orange. Like, the last layer of color that I put down is going to be orange. But beneath it, we're going to have all of these other shades of orange. We're going to have yellow, we're going to have green, we're going to have pink, maybe a little red in there, maybe a touch of blue. And that last layer is going to show through, or allow those colors to show through just a bit. And I think, well, my hope is that in the final product, or the finished product, you'll kind of get the sense that the goldfish is maybe absorbing or perhaps reflecting the colors that are surrounding it in its environment or its habitat. So it gives maybe a greater depth of color by layering it. But by design, these markers aren't allowed to, or aren't made to, let a lot of color through. But I'm using that fact, like, intentionally. It's an experiment, friends. We'll see how it goes. Another feature that I wanted to chat about is the fact that these pens have a brush tip, and that's very different than the other acrylic markers that I have, which are Poscas, which have that kind of bullet tip. I think that's what it's called. And I found with that kind of nib on a marker that it kind of develops this, like, I don't know what to call it, but the tip of the marker kind of like sheds, and you have to clean it off every so often. Otherwise, it makes weird streaks or smears on your work. So I kind of fell in love with the brush tip as I was using them. I found it a lot easier to use, a lot more flexible. Well, literally flexible, but also just in like how much ink I wanted to put down. I could do thin lines or I could do much thicker lines depending on the pressure I used on the pen and the angle. So that was really nice and not something I was expecting. I was surprised. And with that, I have a couple of final thoughts. First, on the quality of the markers, and second, do they do what they're supposed to do? Do they work as described on their website? As for the quality, I think they're great. They all worked perfectly out of the box. As soon as I tried to use them, ink went on the paper, which is not the case with something like a Posca where you have to pump the ink. And none of the markers had any issues with like not having enough ink or anything like that. Cool. Second, does it do what it's supposed to do, given the website description? I'd say the answer is like 85%. Yes. One thing that they say in the product details is that they have an abundant color choice. All you need for shading and coloring anything from skin tones, manga art, comic illustrations, cartoons, and costume designs. I mean, I love this color set because I use lots of pinks and blues in my art, but I don't draw people. And as for their point about skin tones, I don't think that every skin tone is represented. And maybe not even every skin tone, but I think if you want to draw anyone with some melanin, you're going to start to have issues because you can't blend any of the colors. There's no there's like a brown, but that's kind of it. So minus points for that. But in terms of everything else they say they're supposed to do, highly pigmented, high covering, water-based ink, the ink flows without flooding or jamming. Yes, those are quality things. So with that, I think I'm going to close out my review. And again, in the comments, you can just tell me, did that sound honest? I'll never know. I'll never know. Bye.